Hello, folks. So in this video, I wanted to talk about responsibility, accountability, and understanding your choices and their consequences. Right. So I am a strong believer that it doesn't make sense to blame others for your problems. So if I have a problem, say problem A, for example, say I got fired, right? Then do I blame the company? Well, you could say that no, I could blame the company, but no, I wouldn't. I would look at the situation. Let's say the company says, hey, your performance wasn't good enough. Then I would take responsibility and be like, okay, so I know what I did in my performance. I know what was expected. If I didn't know, yeah, that's a different problem. I could have asked. So instead of me saying they didn't tell me what to do, I could have asked. This is an experience then. And then the next thing is if I know that I wasn't performing well, then I'm like, okay, this is not surprising. Okay. And if I was already told that I'm not performing well and whatnot, then it's not a big surprise. It's like expected that a company is running a business, right? So they want to be profitable, so they would do what is right for them, what is right by them. And what is right by them is basically ensuring that the company is performing well, everyone is performing well, and they make more and more profit. So they'll have expectations, and the money they pay, the salary they pay, they'll have some expectations of what is the worth that that money has. So some companies might pay more for the same amount of work. Some companies might pay less. So it depends, right? So I'll be like, okay, so I should have put in more effort. So I'll take responsibility. And if I'm going to blame anyone, it's just going to be me. I'm just going to be like, I didn't put in more work. I didn't focus on my work. I didn't ask them the expectations if they haven't told me the expectations, or if I don't know the expectations. I should have asked them, hey, I don't know the expectations. What's expected of me? How much work should I do? Am I doing well? Get frequent feedback. So I would look at it from my point of view instead of saying, hey, the company is rude, the company is a bad company is toxic and whatnot. Look at it like this. Instead of saying the company is toxic, just look at it like this. Like, what is the company expecting? What are you expecting? And then understand that if either you basically try to compromise on your expectations, or inform and communicate your expectations to the company so that they understand what they need to compromise on. If they are not ready to compromise, they will immediately tell like you're not a good fit. That I'm not, like in this case, say I'm not a good fit. And if they are ready to compromise, they'll compromise. And if they're not ready to compromise, they'll say either you compromise or you're not a good fit. So I have to understand if it's a good fit or not. So if I'm not able to do what they're asking of me to do, then apart from, say, if I want to blame someone, I'll just blame myself for not finding the right company for me, and for not accepting the right company. Or maybe it's just things happen because it's hard to understand, say, if a company will work for you or not until and unless you work there. You could talk to the company leadership, the team members, and whatnot. Unless and until you get into the company, work in the team, work for the leaders, work for your team and whatnot, and understand the goals, understand the future of the team and the realities as the time goes, it's hard to really gauge if something will work for you. It's, you basically can't predict the future, right? You just can guess it to some extent, that's all. Even with that guess, sometimes it's a good guess, sometimes it's a bad guess, so it's okay. So either if I'm going to blame someone, I'll blame myself, and I will take full responsibility regardless of blaming myself or not. I'll be like, okay, if anything could have been done, I could have done it better. The company, I can't really expect much of them, and I can't really control what they do or what they don't do. It's their company, they can decide who they want to keep and whatnot. And I can be like, okay, it just wasn't a good fit. Like, the company wanted this, and I'm not this. I wish I could have found this even before joining the company, but it's fine. Let's just move on. That's all, right? So you don't really blame others. That's like immature, according to me, right? So if something happens to you and you blame others, you're basically saying others have control over what's happening to you, say your problems, your issues, and whatnot. But when you actually blame yourself, either blame yourself or take responsibility or both, but in any case, take responsibility. So, regardless of blaming yourself or not, because blaming is like a kind of like a negative thing also. But sometimes you take like instead of saying blaming, you can just surely say responsibility. Like take responsibility for your actions and accept that hey, you took this action, you made this choice, and when you make a choice, you accept the consequences, right? For example, let's say you're walking on the road or whatever, and let's say a police comes and asks, hey, show me your Aadhaar, like ID card, government issued ID card, Aadhaar card, whatever, right? And you make a choice saying like, no, I won't show, it's a private thing for me, and why do you want to see? I won't show. And if the police says no, if you don't show, we'll arrest you. And out of your freedom of right, if you decide to actually not show, you will still have to face the consequences of the law, wherein they will actually say arrest you or withhold you and whatnot. I don't know the law and whatnot, if it's fair and if it's legal and all that, but you will have to understand that you have to face the consequences when you make a choice. But of course, you are free to make any choice. That's the thing, right? You have the freedom and the right to make any choice. You're free to make any choice, but you have to also accept that every choice comes with its own consequences, and you really cannot control what others do, what others say, how others behave, and whatnot. You can only control your own actions, words, behavior, your emotions, your feelings, and whatnot. So just focus on yourself and what you can do. And when you make a choice, accept it. And if you think you've made a mistake or if you think you could have done something better, accept that you could have done something better and you didn't do your best. It's fine. Be empathetic, of course, or else it's going to become a negative self-talk, which doesn't really help when you become a very self-critical person. So being your own harshest critic seems strict and great and all, like you'll want to improve yourselves, but at the same time it's like very strict, that it's very very saddening and very harsh to yourself, being very rude to yourself. And the reality is how you treat yourself is also kind of how you treat others to some extent, at least in your head. And to some extent it might also become reality in worst case scenarios, wherein your behavior, your actions, your words will actually reflect what you think, and which is usually how you say treat yourself. You might think and treat others the same way. And if you are your own harshest critic, then you're probably the harshest critic for others also, at least in your head, and that can show up somehow. It'll, no matter how much you hide, it can show up. So beware, and try to be more kind and empathetic. But of course, with like uphold and like hold up your expectations, have higher expectations of yourself and others, especially have higher expectations on yourself, but be empathetic at the same time. It's a very tricky balance. When you make mistakes, accept that you made a mistake, accept that you could have done better, and accept that it's fixable and that you will fix it. Don't think of it like you can't fix it. So I'm reading this book called Grit. It's by this author named Angela Duckworth. So she has written a great book. I'm still midway. So one of these chapters talks about learned optimism and learned helplessness, about how people can actually learn helplessness and feel helpless. And apparently suffering is caused by The feeling that you cannot control your, like, you'll feel helpless when you feel like you cannot control your suffering, or you have no control over your suffering. But the reality is, you a lot of times you have control over your suffering, your problems, your issues, and you can actually fix it. You can take actions, effort, you can put in time, effort, energy to actually fix issues that you have, fix your suffering, fix your problems, and whatnot. So if you think that your suffering cannot be controlled and is not in your control, most probably it's not true. You can get help, and you can help yourselves also, and you can get help from others. So yeah, when you make a choice, um, be responsible, take responsibility, and when you have problems, try to be optimistic and understand that problems are fixable. And if you make a mistake, or if you could have done something better, it's fine. You can fix it. It's usually small problems, like say bad time management, or you didn't know better, ignorance and things like that, or you haven't experienced it before much, or you weren't actually thinking straight at the time, probably because you were sleepy or whatever, something. It can be anything, and it can usually be fixed. And so yeah, try not to blame others for your problems. Focus on yourself and your actions, and try to look at how you could have done better, and or what is the problems root. Like, it's not easy to find the root cause always, but try to understand problems root cause, or what can be done to avoid the problem. There are different ways to solve problems. We'll probably talk about it in a different thing, but I think the gist and the main thing is basically avoid the problem, which is not exactly going to work in a lot of cases, but avoiding the problem altogether in one case, in some way or the other, or like basically maneuvering through the problem or away from the problem, and or ensuring that the problem doesn't occur in the first place, something like that. Or problem occurs but you avoid it. That doesn't exactly help. No, running away from the problem. No. And then solving it is of course one of the good ways. I think there's one more, and you can go check it out. There are some frameworks on how to solve problems and all. This is from my understanding, from in terms of like work, wherein I do software development, and I try to see how to solve a problem, an issue, or a bug, or whatever in software. So these are some ways that I do, and I usually apply a lot of things that I learn in one domain in another domain. Let's say I learn something in software in my work, in my tech industry, then I try to see if I can actually apply it in my life also, right? Because these are generic things that you can actually learn and apply, and it's nice to just transfer your skills and learnings from one domain to another. It's like pretty awesome. I basically take inspiration from work, nature, and anything and everything. So, yep. So yeah, try not to blame others. Be responsible. Be accountable, and understand that your actions have consequences. Your choices have consequences. So yeah, look at how you can do better, and doesn't make sense to blame others, which basically says that others have control over your life. Reality is you have a lot of control over your life, no matter how much it seems like you don't. You kind of live with that idea, and a lot of times you do have a lot of control over your life. Very rarely, in very few cases, you don't have some control in your life. You don't have to focus on that for now. And you can work towards making your life better. So take responsibility, be responsible, be accountable for your life, and take responsibility for your actions, and you are in control. If anyone is to blame, is to be blamed, it's you. But don't blame yourself too much, and be a big self-critic. So yeah, that's all I had for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.